shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello BYWG Tribe, this is Dr. Noah. We wanted to make you aware of our carefully selected Product of the Month and Book of the Month for January 2018. Keep in mind, all the links and discount codes for the book and products will be listed in the show notes in iTunes and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. Our book of the month is Beyond the Mat, Achieve Focus, Presence, and Enlightened Leadership Through the Principles and Practice of Yoga by Julie Rosenberg, MD. Our product of the month is Swannies, our favorite and most stylish blue light blocking glasses for better sleep. Both Julie Rosenberg, discussing her book, and James Swanwick, discussing better sleep, can be heard on the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast archives.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I am your co-host. Today our guest is actor, producer, entrepreneur, David Bianchi. I first heard David on one of the podcasts I recommend, and that's Sean Croxton's Quote of the Day. Thank you, David, for being on and agreeing to be on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let me do your bio because it's pretty diverse and pretty unbelievable, and then we'll get started. From Rochester, New York, now based in Hollywood, California, he first hit the stage in third grade in Mexico City. He is classically trained with a BFA in theater film from Arizona State University. David is Brazilian Italian and fluent in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. With over 90 IMDb credits from studio and independent films, he can be seen in major films and indies like Elizabethtown, Priest, Billy Brown, as well as numerous TV appearances on hit shows like HBO's Westworld, Pretty Little Liars, The Last Ship, Southland, General Hospital, and Days of Our Lives. His work in front of the camera has earned him membership into the very prestigious Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. David is also a globally known spoken word poet with TV appearances on 2 seasons of the NAACP award-nominated show Verses and Flow. David produces spoken word films, most recently alongside Emmy-nominated, Grammy Award-winning actor and poet Malcolm Jamal Warner. Whew! David is a modern-day Renaissance man that truly believes in the power of art and the importance of his craft. David has 18 IMDb producer credits, 16 screenwriting credits, and is the founder of Exertion Films. Man, that's one heck of a bio, David.
Well, I appreciate you for saying that and speaking it with such gravitas. You make me actually sound like a serious guy.
Ooh. Well, listen. Like I said, and I want to just repeat, I heard you do a little bit of a quote or a little bit of your spoken word on a podcast that I highly recommend, Sean Croxton's Quote of the Day. I put it up on Instagram. You reached out to me, so I'm thankful that you pay attention to your Instagram, and I'm thankful for you for being on that Quote of the Week, and thankful for you being on today.
Well, I do appreciate that, and big shout out to Sean Croxton and what he does. He inspires millions of people, and also big shout out to Kelly Kristen, who was also a life coach as well, who turned me on to Sean Croxton, who was familiar with my work. So, everything that's good in my life has been a direct result of helping somebody else, and me speaking with you right now is a direct result of people helping me. And so I think that reciprocity is really the foundation of one of the foundations of success. So I'm not surprised that we are speaking. So thank you for taking the time.
No, my pleasure. Now, how about personalizing your bio just a little bit for our audience?
Personalizing it, I'm not necessarily sure how to personalize it. I mean, to make a long story short, I'm an artist. I see the world through art, and I came to Los Angeles about 13 and a half years ago with dreams of pursuing a career and becoming a working actor, and facing the pitfalls of what Hollywood has to offer. Through that process, I took my career, in my own hands and began producing content as a result of Hollywood not affording me the opportunities that I believe I was owed. Self-entitlement with every artist. And so, but through that desperation, through receiving the gift of desperation, I realized that producing was something that I could do and something that over the course of many years I became quite good at. And so as a direct result of wanting to act, I began to produce things that I act in, and then that quickly turned into building a reputation around Hollywood of a very serious actor, but also a very serious producer as well. And then the spoken word stuff is, writing has always been a passion of mine, hence being now in the closing phases of my new manuscript of my new book called Pursue, Reach, Attain, Retain, Repeat. I do believe that I'm a Renaissance guy. I love art for the sake of art, but my primary focus in Hollywood is as an actor and as a filmmaker.
Cool. Now, we're definitely going to get into your new book for sure. But, when I heard you speak, when I hear you speak now, it seems your energy and your passion is boundless. Do you have secrets to that boundless energy and boundless passion?
Thank you for saying that. And yeah, I'm a pretty electric guy. I don't know if it's by DNA. I'm Italian and Brazilian, so I mean maybe it's part of this my DNA. Look, I think that it really boils down to purpose. One has to find one's purpose, and I discuss this in my writing about finding what your molecular level gift is. I believe that everybody has a molecular level gift. That is designed, that is written all the way down to a molecular level that they need to give on to the world. And it is sometimes we discover it very early on in our lives, sometimes we discover it later on in our lives. In terms of the motivation, I think it is about also dissecting down what is purpose. Because we have long-term purpose, our wildest dreams, and then we have sort of, mid-long-term purpose, but then we have to have interim purpose. What are the daily things that are going to get us out of bed every day, that are going to charge us, that are going to give us that daily lightning bolt while we fight for the long-term purpose? And that interim purpose for me is having great conversations with you, working, prepping for a film that I'm going to be shooting in Colorado this weekend. Doing the sort of the ins and outs of my day-to-day life while I am in active pursuit of my long-term purpose.
And what is your long-term purpose?
To earn an Academy Award and leave an artistic legacy.
I love the fact that you knew it without hesitation. That's really important.
Yeah, and it is without hesitation, and I think that. And I think that, the idea of earning an Academy Award is, it's the brass ring, but that is the pinnacle of my industry. But more importantly, I want to leave an artistic legacy because there's nothing here of this earthly world I can take with me, but I'm very interested in leaving things behind me because my ancestors worked so hard to be able to create opportunities for themselves, and I would be shirking myself and my ancestors if I didn't follow suit. So leaving a legacy to inspire people when I'm long gone, I think is the most important thing. And the Academy Award is obviously one of the things that we fight for the most as actors.
David, what are some traits, working as an actor, working as a producer, do you see essential for someone inspiring to walk in your footsteps?
I think that regardless of what your discipline is, I believe that everybody has to have a certain amount of instinctual capacity for whatever it is that they do. As an actor, you could learn, the American dramatic canon, Stanislavski, Stella Adler techniques. You can learn Meisner techniques. You can, learn voice and diction techniques. But eventually, you have to sway an audience into believing that you have recreated that text through your physical form and created catharsis through what you do with your physical form. So at some point, you have to have instincts for it. Say, for example, if you're a prosecuting attorney, you can learn the bar until you're blue in the face. Eventually, you have to sway a jury of your peers. So I think you have to have that. Now, once you believe that you have those instincts, then I think there's a couple other things. It really is diligence. It is a constant state of acceptance for things outside of you that you cannot control. And I also believe we have to be in touch with some sort of spiritual component that centers us. Now, that isn't necessarily religiously based. I think that it is something that is rooted in the inner voice. We need to be able to intuitively be able to constantly listen to our inner voice, to have some sort of compass to guide us when things get tough. There are many actors and artists alike that are not as talented as others, but are diligent and are workhorses and will not stop showing up. And I have seen artists who are incredibly talented, but unfortunately lack that belief in that inner voice in themselves that gives them the gumption to get out of bed every day, and they end up squandering their gift because they don't have what the other individual has, which is the never-ending, thirstless desire to compete. And I think that is essential, regardless of whatever your respective discipline is.
Is it a competition in your business?
You know, I think that yes and no. Certainly, look, when we talk about awards, yeah, it's a competition, but I mean, it's all art. So art is subjective. So it's all opinion based. I personally believe that there is more than enough to go around. But you do have to have a certain amount of competitive mentality to function at a high level in my particular field, and I think in any particular field, whether you aspire to become a director of marketing or whether you aspire to take whatever financial grant you were afforded in your medical practice to find that breakthrough in whatever your discipline is. I think you have to have a competitive edge. Treating everything like a competition, I think, closes the door on growth. Because none of us are islands and none of us are rocks. We can't do this alone. Anybody that believes we can get to that pinnacle of success alone, I think is foolish. So as soon as I look at everything as a competition, I'm closing the doors on the ability to open up my arms to other people, to link arms with people, to be able to get to the next step of what my respective legend is going to become. So having an edge to know that I have to move forward and I have to be diligent, I have to drop my shoulder every once in a while, sure. But looking at everything as a competition, I think, is a shortcut.
Yeah, I agree. Now, who do you emulate in both the acting world and the producer world?
Wow. I think emulation is a tricky word, especially when it comes to art. All art is stolen. It's just we're always reinventing the wheel per se. But I do have people that I admire. Great people like Morgan Freeman, great people like Denzel Washington. I really have a deep admiration for Will Smith. I mean, Will is one of the, he says it publicly very often. He's like, I may not be the best actor, but you will not outwork me. Right. And those are I look for specific qualities in individuals that really, really speak to me. As far as producers, there are mega producers. There are film directors that I think I look up to a little bit more than producers. Directors like Darren Aronofsky. Directors like the God rest his soul, Tony Scott, Ridley Scott. Antoine Fuqua, who I just had the privilege of acting in one of his most recent films that's now in production. Really, really smart artists with high aesthetics are really what I look for, because those are the things that I aspire to. In the world of art, all we really have is our name and our reputation. People will inevitably forget what you shot. They will forget what you've created. But they'll never forget how you made them feel. And they will never forget how hard you work. Right? And I think that having a high aesthetic and not necessarily taking yourself so seriously in your personal life, but taking yourself very seriously in your professional life is also part of the bedrock to long-term success.
Yeah, I love what you said, and we say this too in my profession, health chiropractic, that, people won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely, and I think that Maya Angelou was quoted as saying that widely, and I absolutely agree with it. I was just recently on a personal sabbatical around Europe, and one of the things that was really drawn to my attention is that as Americans we spend more time investing in the material than we do in the experiential. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to actively spend more time doing, which is really investing in the experiential, not just for people around me and in my personal circle, but investing in the experiential for myself. Because memories exist in connectivity, in the fabric of the human condition. It's easy for me to buy something for somebody and walk away, but it's harder for me to do something for someone or with someone. To create a long-lasting bond between people that will be the fabric that will hold you together and maybe at some point be the leverage that you need if you end up in a tight situation.
Yep, well said, well said. Now, I have one kind of jovial question that I need to ask before we start talking a little bit more about your new book and your manuscript. And when I was prepping for our interview, I saw that you were on Days of Our Lives. Now,
I was once upon a time on Days of Our Lives, indeed.
right. So for those loyal BYWG listeners, they would remember that you're the second interviewee that I had that had acted on my mother and my favorite daytime soap opera. so, the first being Annie Nilo from Alatura. I don't know if you're familiar with Andy.
I don't. I'm not familiar with Andy, but I can quickly look him up.
Yeah, Andy was an actor slash model, and he created this product of like facial care and body care products called Alatura. But he was on Days of Our Lives as well. So I have to ask.
Yeah, he's billed as the hot guy on Days of Our Lives. Look him up now.
And so I have to ask, do you remember what part you played, what year, and who you acted with?
Yes, I do. It was about 2015 or so it wasn't that long ago. And who was I in the scene with? I played a construction worker. It was sort of a one-day job. It was like a demolition sequence. And let me see if I can remember who I was in the scene with. I think I was with maybe, oh God, it's been so long. And for anybody that's out there, this is Days of Our Lives fan, they're probably, slapping themselves in their chair and wondering why I didn't take it so seriously. I'm not taking it so seriously, but as an actor, you do so much work. Oftentimes, you forget who you work with.
Sure.
But Trevor Donovan, it might have been Trevor Donovan. That could have been him. But let me get back to you on that. But Days of Our Lives is a fantastic show. I have nothing but great things to say about the show because it really is a stepping stone for so many great actors. I mean, even George Clooney, Brad Pitt. These guys started. They got their chops wet in soaps, and it's a show that has such an incredible legacy. And for people out there that don't understand how soaps work, they shoot really, really fast. So to give you a sense of how that's done, you show up, you know what you're going to do, you got your lines, but you get on set and it's one take, two takes, move on. One take, two takes, move on. So they're always looking for a certain kind of, sort of grease actor because there's no room for error in that show. And for the series regulars on that show, their lives are really intense. They're in front of the camera doing one take for 12 hours a day. They turn around, go home, and then they got 30 pages of lines they got to learn, and they wake up and do it all over again. So
that's neat. That's neat. Everybody thinks that that's like a cake job or that's easy, but that's a nice insight into how difficult that job could actually be.
Yeah, look, a lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, it's melodrama," but if you're a series regular on a show like that, you're shooting 30, 40 pages of dialogue a day, and that's intense. That's really, really intense, especially when you only get one or two takes because they're moving so quickly. So, there's greatness in there too, because there's a tremendous amount of focus, discipline that needs to come with not just the professional world, but also the private world. There's no going out. There's no hitting the town and being quote unquote glamorous when you're in production. It is all on, hands on deck, full on focus. Because if you fail, the camera doesn't lie.
Right. That's really great insight. Thank you for indulging me on that question.
Sure.
So let's round out your Renaissance man tendencies. You're writing a book called Pursue, Reach, Attain, Retain, and Repeat. How about breaking down each one of those those statements a little bit for our audience to give us a little bit of a feel of what to expect when it does come out?
Sure thing, and thank you for asking. I call it PRAR. PR, pursue, reach, attain, return, repeat. PRAR, like a lion roaring. A lot of it sort of comes from the idea of it being a spin cycle, that success and failure is absolutely cyclical. You can't have one without the other. And as we begin sort of our careers and our journeys into what is going to be the attainment of pursuing our molecular level gift, we fail much, much more than we succeed. And slowly, that circle begins to turn, and we have fewer failures and more successes, and the distance between failure and success becomes more and more broad. It starts with the idea of pursuit, because the idea of pursuit, in my mind, is that pursuing takes an active decision, which creates the instigation for an activity. We can have a philosophical conversation and maybe say something like, okay, if there are 3 men sitting on a diving board, one of them decides to jump, how many men are left on the diving board? I don't know. Arguably, some people could say 2. Some people might argue 3. I would argue potentially 3. Because just because we make decisions doesn't mean we act or move into the center of that decision. Because people make decisions every day but don't always act. So even just the idea of pursuing something is an activity that has to happen in the mind and identifying what it is that you're going to pursue before you get there. And then the idea of reaching going into, again, the action of reaching. Because just because we're in pursuit of something doesn't necessarily mean that when we get there, we have the courage, the wherewithal, the environment to reach for whatever it is that we're reaching for. Oftentimes, people make decisions to pursue things and flounder at the last minute. How many people have been left abandoned at the altar? So that's an example. I mean, that's a very dramatic example. But even the idea of reaching is, again, it's the constant idea of the moving forward and the thought process of reaching into something that you have been actively pursuing. Being honest with yourself and not giving yourself concessions. Now, once you attain something, you get to the step of making the conscious decision to reach. Now I have attained. Now, once I've attained something, right, the success in achieving something that you've desired or that you've worked for. So at that point, we believe that, okay, I've attained this thing. I've attained this milestone, this goal. Say, for example, with me, it might be publishing of the book. Okay, I've attained it. Now you feel like you can step back. In fact, that is absolutely what you should not be doing. Because once we attain something, that is when we have to push it into 5th gear and work harder. Because this is where the rubber hits the road. And we have to remove ourselves from the equation completely. Because attaining something is only the beginning of what is going to be the long-term journey to the next level of your success. Because then you have to figure out how to retain it. One of the examples I use in the book is a surfer. You go through the process of getting the perfect wave. You're out there, you're paddling, you're pursuing the perfect wave. You're catching a little undertow, and you're out there and you're waiting. Finally, you catch that perfect wave. You pedal just so perfectly with your arms so you can catch the flow of the water. You pop up on your feet, and now you've got the perfect wave. Out on the sand, you've got onlookers that are supporting you and watching you and cheering you on. Now, you have attained that perfect wave. In other words, you have attained the pinnacle of where you think you're supposed to be. Now, you have 2 choices when you're riding that perfect wave. You can look to the sand and you can have eye contact and sort of showboat and soak and sort of soak into the glory and bask in the glory of the fact that you've attained this moment. Or you can keep your head down and think about how you are going to retain what you have attained. Because if you spend too much time looking at the sand, that wave's going to break under your feet. And guess what? The next surfer's coming up behind you, and those people on the sand have forgotten about you because they're watching the next surfer. Or you can be focused on the next step of your process, which is getting out of attaining and retaining what you've attained so that you can then turn around and have the discipline to repeat. And it changes for everyone. And everybody has a different line of work. Everybody has a different set of goals that they want to achieve. And so it's slightly different for everyone. But in a loose way of breaking it down, that's sort of what I'm trying to show people, is that we have to understand that most of our circumstances are beyond our human control, but our conduct is in our own power. And how do we conduct ourselves when we are actively pursuing, reaching, attaining, retaining, and trying to repeat in order so that we can create an ongoing cycle of success with bigger distances between our failures? So we can take that first cycle, put it in a box and make it passive income, and reinvent yourself into the next step of your pursue, reach, attain, retain, repeat cycle, and continue to do this throughout the rest of your life. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When do you foresee this book coming out?
I look to be published by end of the first quarter, so it's right around the corner. I am very, very deep in in my manuscript, and I'm going through some deep revisions. I have some great colleagues that are New York Times bestsellers that are pretty interested in what I'm doing, and there's no doubt in my mind that it will be published, and it will be published very soon. And I look forward to doing a speaking tour that will be sort of revolving around the book. I mean, one of the things that I do want to do and I aspire to do is just to remind people that everything that they need to be successful is already in their own backyard. But we get so busy trying to focus on what is in front of us and slightly in our periphery that we forget that we are the owners of our own power. Our deepest ability to be successful is inside of our diaphragms, our hearts, and our spirits, and our minds. We already own all the gifts. And I want to remind people that everything that you need is already within you. And if you can begin to lead by example, people will follow.
That's great. Now, you talked about a speaking tour. You do quite a bit of spoken word, too. How did that happen?
I do. Back in New York, growing up in the early days, sort of like what we consider the golden age of hip hop, which is like 90 to 95, I was a battle rapper. And I used to do a lot of freestyling in the streets and whatnot. And so that eventually evolved as I got into higher learning. Then I found this idea of like slam poetry, spoken word poetry. I was like, oh, what is this? Oh, I can be sophisticated and I can be a linguist, but I don't have to be a thug. Oh, that appeals to me. Because in the 90s, it's like if you weren't a thug, then you weren't a rapper. And so that really didn't really compute or speak to my person. So I ended up finding the slam poetry scene, moving to Arizona when I was at Arizona State, and then that sort of blossomed into producing slam poetry events, and then now that sort of evolved into me doing, a lot of spoken word, and now I produce spoken word films. So I've amassed a library of spoken word films, which are essentially experimental narratives told entirely in poetry. And so when I do leadership speaking, I like to incorporate elements of spoken word poetry in my speaking performances. I think that it adds a different layer to my message. I think it adds a different layer to the audience's experience. And it's interactive. It's fun, and it makes it more than just a sort of, a cookie cutter jar talk. It really makes it an experience.
Wow, you truly are a Renaissance man. Is there anything you don't do? Do you cook?
You know what? I love to cook. I really, really love to cook. I was just, when I was just frolicking around Europe, and I say this all the time, I always look for the love in food. If I can't taste the love in it, I don't want it. And even when I look at food, I look at it as art, because some chef, some sous chef, cut his teeth for 20 years to be able to be in a position where he can put that plate of food in front of you. And I think that there's gravitas in that, So I think there's art in everything.
Totally agree. Now I have just a last few questions. One of them is a question I ask everybody near the end. And the day in the life of David, when you wake up to when you go to bed, what's your daily rhythm or rituals?
That for me, being as an actor, I'm an independent contractor, and as a filmmaker, I'm an independent contractor. So that changes on a daily basis. But there are a couple of things that I do every day without fail, no matter what. As soon as I wake up, I work really hard before I even look at my cell phone to stop, and I get on my knees and I talk to God, who I perceive God to be. Everybody has a different conception of what God is. It could be a higher power. I'm not here to talk about religion, just about what works for me. And I asked my God to give me the power of clarity. I asked for humility. I asked for focus. I asked for diligence. I asked for calm. I asked for reservation of hand, body, and tongue, text message, tweet. I asked for empathy. I asked for humility. I asked for love. For me, it's sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's even been 10 minutes. I'll speak to my God and I'll have a quiet moment. I'll try to meditate and just listen to the environment for 5 or 6 minutes. It's, for me, a great way to step outside of my ego and my perceived wants and needs and desires and step into my conscious contact with the spiritual world around me so that I can put myself in a position to be available and be of service to people. It centers me. It aligns me. Because Hollywood is a chaotic place. And there's a lot out there that will derail you if you let it. Another thing that I do is I always make sure that I call at least one person or two people that I'm mentoring, and I make sure that I call one of my mentors. Those are things that I do every day without fail. I think that it is important to have people that you mentor, to put yourself in a position of humility and a position of service, and also talk to someone who is your mentor so that you can be in a position of perpetual inspiration. Even if it is just checking in and leaving a voicemail, just knowing that I'm in contact with that person that moves me and inspires me is very important to me on a daily basis. So those are a few things that I do every day no matter what. I try to journal as well.
Any exercise routines, later night routines to kind of calm your body down, anything like that?
Sure, and I mean, physical fitness for me is like religion. I mean, that's like religion. I'm in the gym, 4 or 5 days a week, and it typically comprises mostly of core work, body mass work, lots of sit-ups. I do 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups a day. I think that most people, if you could do that, you'll pretty much remain healthy. I eat a very clean diet. I do drink a lot of coffee, but that's probably my only vice. I don't drink alcohol. I don't, no nothing like that. I don't smoke cigarettes. So, as far as at night I sort of do a little bit of the same. I get a little lazy at night, I will admit, but at night, whenever I lay my head on the pillow, I always talk to that inner voice, and I say thank you. I say thank you for today. Thank you for another day. Thank you for my health. And I try to do even if it's just a mental checklist, a review of the day. Was I kind to people? Was I unfair to people? Did I do the best that I could? Is there a reason for me to maybe pick up the phone the next day and maybe say to somebody, hey, you know what? I went a little hard on you. I apologize. Is there a place where I need to sort of make up for maybe where I fell short? It's a good way of holding myself accountable. And it also brings me to a place of peace at night. And then I've got also a daily reflections book that I read every day as well. I tend to read my daily reflections in the morning. And then I also have a nightly reflections book that I often take a look at in bed as well right before I go to sleep.
Seems like a lot of gratitude to me.
Yes, absolutely. There's no other way to put it. Because look, I am blessed with the opportunity to work in a business that people dream to participate in. And none of this is guaranteed. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you own, 500 acres and you're a farmer. You better be grateful for the rain. If you're a guy, a blue collar guy, be grateful for your union. I mean, everybody has something to be grateful for. Be grateful for the soles on the shoes that you're walking around in. Be grateful for your health. Be grateful for the people that love you. I write gratitude lists on a regular basis because it's so easy to get caught up in the things that I think I should have, as opposed to reminding myself of the glorious things that I do have. If I'm in a place of gratitude, you can't punch the smile off my face. I might get upset and ask why you did it, but it's being in a place of gratitude is infectious. It's infectious to people around you, and when you're not in that place of gratitude, your circle will call you on it. They will say, "What is wrong with you? What's going on?" They'll pull you aside and they'll want to talk because they will know that something is off.
Absolutely, absolutely will. Now, what's the best way for our audience to keep up to date on what you're doing? Because it's a heck of a lot of things.
Sure, and I appreciate that. I'm very easily, you can Google me, David Bianchi, Bianchi. I'm very active on Instagram in my personal life, and that's D Bianchi D Bianchi SAG. So D Bianchi, S as in Sam, A as in Apple, G as in Gary. So Screen Actors Guild. So D Bianchi SAG. That's my personal Instagram. But davidbianchi.actor is my personal website. And other than that, you can Google me. You can find me on Facebook. I'm always putting out messages of positivity and messages of inspiration for anybody that follows me. I'm always interested in engaging with people. Obviously, you and we connected on Instagram.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not afraid of that. I love connecting with people. I love hearing how people's lives are changing. And I love hearing how I can be better. So I take feedback. I take criticism. I live in a world full of criticism, so I got tough skin.
What movies or programs can we see you in soon? Anything coming out?
Yes. There's a new film called Destined that just had a limited release in theaters that will release digitally. That will probably release Hulu and Netflix in January, which is right around the corner. You'll be able to catch me on season 2 of HBO's Westworld. And that's going to be coming around in 2018, as well as a new show called Unsolved, which is going to be on USA, and that's going to start airing in the first quarter of 2018. And that's a great show. That's Unsolved: The Murders of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls.
Oh, all right, okay.
So that's going to be on USA. Those are the immediate ones. There's a great film, or you can go on Hulu, and there's a great film that I play a pretty good leading role in called All Out Dysfunction, which is a dark comedy. FYI, it's not for the kids, but it's a good one. That one I wrote that and I produced that, and also played one of the leads in that one as well. And that's on Hulu, Amazon Prime, Apple TV.
Awesome.
You can catch that one too.
Awesome. Any last words for our audience, David?
One of the things that I write a lot of quotes, and one of the quotes that I'm pretty happy about that stuck with me over the years is, the only time not worth taking time is time wasted. And it's an interesting play against itself, in that you never know if time is wasted unless it took time to begin with. But if you're in a position in your life where you are vibrating at a frequency that emotes positivity, there is not a moment in your life that will be wasted. So always take the time.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your time.
And I appreciate yours. I'm happy that we spoke, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and you're listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Dreams podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and family and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. You can sign up for our credible weekly email at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. And as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome.